I was standing outside my own bedroom door when I heard my wife tell another woman she was only with me for my money. 55 years old, 32 years of marriage, two daughters. I walked down the aisle, and in one phone call, I learned I'd been sleeping next to a stranger my whole life. If you've ever loved someone who was just pretending, this one's for you. Before we go any further, hit that like button and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. I need to know I'm not alone in this. And subscribe, because what happened next changed everything I thought I knew about love, loyalty, and who you can really trust. My name is Henry McLean. I'm 55 years old. And back when this story started, I was living what most people would call the American dream in Austin, Texas. I owned a ranch, 23 rental properties, cash flow that could choke a horse. My wife Diane was 53. We had two beautiful daughters, Camille, 24, and Jasmine, 23. Both married, both settled. Life was good, or so I thought. I still remember the smell of that morning, coffee brewing in the kitchen, bacon sizzling on the cast iron, Diane humming some old Anita Baker song while she moved around the stove. Sunlight was pouring through the windows of our 5-bedroom house on the edge of the hill country, the kind of light that makes everything look like a postcard. I was sitting at the table going through my ledger, checking numbers from the rentals. Everything was tight. Everything was clean. I'd worked 30 years to get here, from laying bricks in the Texas heat to owning land people dreamed about. Diane brought me a plate, kissed me on the forehead like she always did. "You work too hard, baby," she said. I smiled, told her somebody had to keep the lights on. She laughed. It was the kind of laugh that made you feel like you were doing something right. I looked at her and thought, this woman chose me. Chose me when I had nothing but a pickup truck and a dream. Stayed with me through the lean years. Raised two daughters who turned out good. I thought I was blessed. I thought I'd done something right in the eyes of God. I didn't know I was living in a lie so thick you could cut it with a blade. That afternoon, I was out at the ranch fixing a fence post that had rotted through. It was hot, the kind of heat that makes your shirt stick to your back and your hands slip on the hammer. I loved it though, loved the work, loved knowing that every post I drove into the ground was mine. Paid for, earned. I was thinking about Diane, thinking maybe I'd take her out that weekend to that steakhouse she liked in downtown Austin. Maybe buy her something nice. She'd been talking about redecorating the living room. I wanted to make her happy. That's all I'd ever wanted. When I got back to the house around 4, I heard her voice coming from the bedroom. The door was cracked. She was on the phone, laughing. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop. I was just walking past to wash up. But then I heard a name I hadn't heard in years. Marcus. She said it soft, like it was precious, like it was wrapped in silk. I stopped. My hand was still on the hallway wall. She said, I know. I think about it too, about what we could have been. My stomach dropped. I felt my heartbeat in my throat. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just listened. Henry's a good provider, she said. But that's all he is. I'm not in love with him. I haven't been in a long time. If I could have made it work with you back then, I would have left in a heartbeat. There was a pause. Then she laughed again. That same laugh she'd given me that morning. Yeah, maybe one day. Who knows? Life's long. I backed away from the door. My hands were shaking. My chest felt like it was caving in. I walked outside and sat on the porch, stared at the land I'd built, the life I thought we'd built together, and I realized I didn't know the woman I'd been sleeping next to for 32 years. I didn't sleep that night. Diane came to bed like nothing happened, kissed me goodnight, rolled over, started snoring within 10 minutes. I laid there staring at the ceiling fan going round and round, feeling like my whole life was spinning with it. I kept replaying what she said. I'm not in love with him. I would have left in a heartbeat. Every word felt like a nail going into my chest. I wanted to shake her awake, wanted to scream, wanted to ask her how long she'd been faking, but I didn't. Something in me said, if you confront her now, she'll just lie. She'll twist it. She'll make you feel crazy. So I stayed quiet. I got up before dawn and went to the kitchen, made myself coffee, sat at that same table where she'd kissed my forehead the day before, and I started thinking, really thinking. If she was only with me for the money, then what would happen if the money was gone? Would she stay? Would she fight for us? Or would she run straight to Marcus, whoever the hell he was? The more I thought about it, the more I realized I didn't want to hear her deny it. I wanted to see the truth. I wanted her to show me who she really was. And the only way to do that was to take away the one thing she said she was staying for. Over the next few days, I kept my distance, told her I was busy with the properties, told her I had meetings. She didn't ask questions, didn't seem to care. I started watching her closer, the way she checked her phone, the way she smiled when a text came through, the way she'd disappear into the bedroom for 20 minutes and come out looking lighter. It was all there. I'd just been too blind or too trusting to see it. My daughters called that week, both of them, asking how we were doing. I lied, told them everything was fine, told them their mama and I were good. I wasn't about to put that weight on them. Not yet. I spent a lot of time on the ranch after that, alone, thinking, praying even, though I hadn't been to church in months. I asked God if I was wrong, if maybe I'd misunderstood. But every time I closed my eyes, I heard her voice. I'm not in love with him. It was like a song I couldn't turn off. I thought about all the years, all the sacrifices, the times I worked double shifts so she could stay home with the girls, the times I held her when she cried about her mama passing, the vacations, the anniversaries. Was any of it real? Or had I been playing a part in someone else's script the whole time? By the end of that week, I made my decision. I wasn't going to confront her. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to ask her to choose me. I was going to set a trap, a test. If she loved me, really loved me, she'd stay even when the money was gone. But if she didn't, then I'd finally know the truth, and I'd be free. I called my accountant, my lawyer, a couple of trusted friends who'd been with me since the beginning. I told them what I was about to do. They thought I was crazy, but they helped me anyway, because they knew what it felt like to wonder if you were loved or just useful. And that's when I became a ghost in my own life. I waited until a Sunday evening. The house was quiet. The girls weren't coming by. Diane was in the living room watching one of those home renovation shows she loved. I walked in and turned the TV off. She looked at me like I'd lost my mind. Henry, what are you doing? I sat down across from her. My hands were folded. My heart was pounding. I looked her dead in the eye and said, "We need to talk." She sat up straighter. "Okay, what's wrong?" I took a breath. I made some bad investments, real bad. I thought I was diversifying, thought I was being smart, but I wasn't. The market crashed on a deal I put everything into. The bank's calling in the loans. They're seizing the properties, all of them. Her face went pale. "What do you mean all of them?" I nodded. "The rentals, the ranch, this house, everything. We're about to lose $8 million, Diane. We're going to lose it all." She didn't say anything at first, just stared at me. Then she stood up, paced, put her hand over her mouth. "Henry, how did you let this happen?" I played the part. Dropped my head, let my voice crack. "I don't know. I thought I was making the right move. I thought." She cut me off. You thought? You gambled our entire life away and you thought it was okay?" I didn't fight back, just sat there. Let her yell. Let her cry. And when she finally sat back down, she put her hand on mine. Her voice got softer. Okay, we'll figure it out. We've been through worse. We'll get through this too." For a second, I almost believed her, almost called the whole thing off. But then I remembered that phone call. I'm not in love with him. So I nodded, said thank you. And 2 weeks later, we moved out of our dream home and into a one-bedroom apartment on the east side of Austin. It was small, cramped. The AC barely worked. We had to share a closet. The neighbors were loud. It smelled like old carpet and regret. Diane didn't say much during the move, just packed her things with her lips pressed tight. I could see it in her eyes. The disappointment, the anger, the disbelief that I'd let us fall this far. But I kept the act going. I got a job at a hardware store, wore a name tag, clocked in at 6 in the morning, came home smelling like sawdust and sweat. Diane got a job at a call center. She hated it, hated everything about it. And slowly, so slowly I almost didn't notice, she started to change. She stopped cooking, stopped kissing me goodnight, stopped looking at me like I was someone worth knowing. And I knew deep down that the mask was starting to slip. The woman I thought I married was disappearing. And the woman I overheard on the phone, she was starting to show her face. It started small. She'd come home from work an hour late, say she stopped by the store. Then it was 2 hours, then 3. One night she didn't come home until almost midnight. I was sitting on the couch in the dark when she walked in. "Where were you?" I asked. She didn't even look at me, just kicked off her shoes. Out. I needed air. That was it. No explanation, no apology, just coldness. I let it go. Told myself maybe she was stressed, maybe she just needed space. But deep down, I knew what was happening. She started dressing different, putting on makeup before work, spraying perfume I didn't recognize. Her phone was always face down, always on silent. One time I asked her who she was texting, and she snapped at me. "Why are you in my business, Henry? You worried I'm going to leave you? Well, guess what? Maybe I should have a long time ago." It felt like a slap. I didn't respond, just walked away. Went to the bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed. I thought about telling her the truth right then. Thought about saying, "I know about Marcus. I know you don't love me." But I didn't, because I wasn't done watching. I needed to see how far she'd go. By the 3rd month in that apartment, she wasn't even hiding it anymore. She'd talk on the phone right in front of me, laugh, whisper. One time I heard her say, "I can't wait to see you." When she hung up, I asked her who it was. She said it was her girlfriend from high school. I knew she was lying. I could see it in the way she wouldn't meet my eyes, in the way her hands shook just a little when she put the phone down. But I didn't push. I just nodded, said okay, and went back to pretending I didn't know my marriage was dying right in front of me. Then one night, she didn't come home at all. I stayed up until 4 in the morning, called her 6 times, no answer. I thought about calling the cops, thought about calling the girls, but something told me to wait. And sure enough, she walked in at sunrise, hair messed up, lipstick smudged. She looked at me standing there and didn't even flinch. "I stayed at a friend's house," she said. I asked which friend. She said it didn't matter. Then she walked past me, went into the bathroom, and locked the door. I heard the shower turn on, and I realized she wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. She didn't care, because in her mind, I was nothing. Just a broke man who couldn't provide, and she was done pretending to love me. That's when I knew the next part of my plan had to happen, because if I didn't act soon, I'd lose myself completely, and I wasn't about to let this woman take my soul along with everything else. I came home from work one evening and saw a car I didn't recognize parked in front of the apartment. A silver Lexus, clean, expensive looking. My stomach tightened. I walked up the stairs, and when I opened the door, I heard voices, laughter. I stepped inside, and there he was, sitting on my couch. Diane was in the kitchen pouring wine. She looked up at me and didn't even flinch. "Henry, this is Marcus, an old friend. He's going through a hard time, so I told him he could stay here a few days." I just stood there. Marcus stood up, extended his hand. He was tall, well-dressed, confident. Everything I wasn't anymore, at least not in her eyes. I shook his hand, felt the weight of what was happening. This wasn't just disrespect. This was war. I looked at Diane. She was smiling, not the fake smile she used to give me, a real one, the kind she used to give me 30 years ago. And I knew this was the man from the phone call. This was the man she said she'd leave me for in a heartbeat. That night, I slept on the couch. Marcus took the bedroom with Diane. I could hear them talking, laughing. I could hear the bed creak. And I laid there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, wondering how I'd let it get this far, wondering if I should have just confronted her from the beginning. But it was too late now. The trap was set, and she was walking right into it. I just had to hold on a little longer, just a little longer, and the truth would come out in a way she could never deny. The next morning, I woke up to the smell of breakfast. I walked into the kitchen, and Marcus was cooking. Diane was sitting at the table, sipping coffee. She looked at me like I was a stranger. "Morning," she said flatly. I didn't respond, just grabbed my work boots and left. I sat in my truck in the parking lot for 20 minutes. My hands were gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. I wanted to go back in there and throw him out. Wanted to tell her she was making a fool of herself. But I didn't, because I knew the end was coming. And when it did, she'd see exactly who she'd chosen. Over the next 2 weeks, Marcus didn't leave. He moved in, started answering the door, started acting like he owned the place. Diane stopped talking to me altogether. She'd walk past me like I was invisible. One night, I tried to talk to her, tried to ask her what we were doing. She looked at me with eyes so cold I barely recognized her. What we're doing? Henry, there is no we. There hasn't been for a long time. You're broke. You're useless. And honestly, I don't know why I stayed this long. Her words hit me like bullets, but I didn't flinch. I just nodded and walked away. 2 days later, she handed me an eviction notice. She'd paid the rent, she was on the lease, and she wanted me out. You've got a week, she said. I looked at the paper, looked at her, and for the first time since this whole thing started, I smiled. Not because I was happy, but because I knew the mask was off. The truth was out. And soon, she'd realized she'd thrown away the one man who actually loved her. But by then, it'd be too late. I moved into a motel off I-35, the kind with stained carpets and a neon sign that flickered all night. I paid by the week. It smelled like cigarettes and cleaning chemicals that didn't quite work. I laid on that hard mattress staring at the water-stained ceiling and thought about my daughters. I hadn't told them what was happening. Didn't want to break their hearts. Didn't want them to see their mama the way I was seeing her now. So I kept quiet, kept working at the hardware store, kept playing the part of a man who'd lost everything. 2 weeks after she kicked me out, a process server showed up at my job, handed me a manila envelope. Inside were divorce papers. She was filing, claimed irreconcilable differences, said she wanted nothing from me, which made sense since she thought I had nothing left to give. I signed them right there in the parking lot. Didn't fight, didn't argue. The server looked at me like I was pathetic. Maybe I was. Or maybe I was just a man waiting for the last card to fall. But she didn't stop there. A week later, I got served again. This time, it was a restraining order. She claimed I'd been harassing her, calling her, showing up at the apartment. None of it was true. I'd left her alone completely. But she needed me gone, needed me out of the picture so she could play house with Marcus without feeling guilty. The order said I couldn't come within 500 feet of her, couldn't call, couldn't text. If I did, I'd go to jail. I read it in my motel room and felt something break inside me. Not my heart, that had already shattered, but my faith that people were good, that love meant something, that vows weren't just words. I thought about calling my daughters then, thought about telling them everything, but I couldn't. Not yet, because if I did, they'd take sides. They'd get pulled into something that wasn't their fight. So I kept my mouth shut, kept going to work, kept living in that motel. And every night I'd sit on the edge of the bed and wonder if this was how my life was supposed to end. Alone, betrayed, forgotten. I prayed, asked God why he let me see the truth if it was only going to destroy me. I didn't get an answer, just silence, the kind that makes you wonder if anyone's listening at all. But then something shifted. I stopped feeling sorry for myself, stopped replaying her words in my head, and I started remembering who I was before all this. I was Henry McLean. I'd built an empire from nothing. I'd raised 2 good daughters. I'd survived poverty, racism, and every obstacle Texas could throw at me. And I'd be damned if I let one lying woman take me down. So I made a decision. I was done playing dead. It was time to come back to life. And when I did, she'd see exactly what she'd thrown away. I called my lawyer, told him it was time to end the game, time to show the world who I really was. He laughed, said, "Henry, you're one cold son of a gun." I didn't disagree, because sometimes the only way to survive betrayal is to become the kind of man who can't be broken twice. And that's exactly who I was about to become. I walked out of that motel on a Tuesday morning, didn't look back. I'd already packed my things the night before, which wasn't much. A duffel bag, some clothes, a photo of my daughters I'd kept hidden under the mattress. I got in my truck and drove to a part of Austin I hadn't been to in months, the West Side, where the big houses sat on hills and the driveways were long enough to forget where they started. I pulled up to a gate, punched in a code, and drove through like I'd never left. Because I hadn't lost anything. Not the ranch, not the properties, not a single dollar. It was all still mine, every bit of it. I'd just hidden it, moved it, put it in trusts and LLCs my lawyer set up, made it look like I was broke when really I was richer than I'd ever been. The house I pulled up to wasn't the one Diane knew. It was bigger, newer. I'd bought it 6 months ago under a business name she didn't know existed. And now it was time to move back in. Time to stop pretending. Time to let the world see that Henry McLean was alive and well. I called my accountant first, told him to start moving money back into my name, told him to update the titles on the properties, to make sure everything was visible again. Then I called a friend who worked at a local news blog, told him I had a story, a good one, about a man who faked bankruptcy to test his wife's loyalty. He ate it up, said it'd go viral. I didn't care about going viral. I just wanted her to know, wanted her to see what she'd walked away from, wanted Marcus to know he'd won nothing but a liar. By the end of the week, word started spreading. People I hadn't talked to in months were calling, texting, asking if it was true, if I'd really set the whole thing up. I didn't confirm or deny. Just let them wonder. Let the story grow. And sure enough, 3 days later, I got a message from a number I didn't recognize. It was Diane's cousin, Teresa. She'd heard the rumors. She wanted to know if I was really back on my feet. I told her I never fell. I just wanted to see who'd catch me. She went quiet. Then she said, "Diane's asking about you." I laughed. A real laugh. The first one I'd had in months. Tell her I'm doing just fine. That night, I sat on the porch of my new house with a glass of whiskey and looked out at the land. The sky was turning purple. The air smelled like cedar and rain. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like myself again. Not the man who got played. Not the man who got thrown out, but the man who built all this with his bare hands. The man who survived. And the man who was about to show the world that you can't break someone who's already been through the fire. I was at the ranch fixing a gate when I saw her car pull up. That same silver Lexus Marcus used to drive. But this time, he wasn't with her. She got out slow, looked around like she couldn't believe what she was seeing. The house, the land, the trucks parked out front. She walked toward me with her arms crossed, hair done, makeup on. She looked the same, but I didn't see her the same way anymore. "Henry," she said. Her voice was soft, the way it used to be when we first met. "Can we talk?" I kept working on the gate. Didn't look up. "Depends. What do you want?" She took a step closer. "I heard you're doing well. That you didn't really lose everything." I nodded. Still didn't look at her. "That's right." She let out a breath. "Why didn't you tell me? Why did you let me think we were broke?" I stopped, straightened up, looked her dead in the eye. "Because I wanted to see if you loved me, or if you just loved what I could give you." She opened her mouth, closed it. Tears started rolling down her face. "Henry, I made a mistake. I was scared. I didn't know what to do, but I never stopped loving you." I laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. "You never started." She shook her head. "That's not true." I cut her off. "I heard you, Diane, on the phone, with Marcus. You said you were only with me because I could provide. You said if you could have made it work with him, you would have left me in a heartbeat. So don't stand here and lie to me." Nace went white. She didn't deny it, couldn't, because she knew I was right. She took a step back, wiped her eyes. I was confused. I didn't mean it. I shook my head. "Yes, you did, and that's okay, because now I know. Now I'm free." She started crying harder. "Please, Henry, don't do this. We can fix this. We can start over." I looked at her one last time, saw the woman I used to love, the woman I used to trust, and I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just peace. "Go home, Diane," I said. "Go back to Marcus, or whoever else you got waiting. But don't come back here, because this part of my life, it's over." She stood there for a long time, just staring at me, waiting for me to change my mind. But I didn't. I turned back to the gate and kept working. And eventually I heard her car start, heard the tires on the gravel, heard her drive away. And when the sound faded, I felt lighter than I had in years. 2 months later, the divorce was finalized. She didn't get a dime. The prenup I'd had her sign 30 years ago, back when I didn't have much, but was smart enough to protect what little I did have. Held up in court. She tried to fight it, claimed I'd deceived her, that I'd manipulated her. But the judge didn't care, said she'd made her choices. Said she'd filed for divorce when she thought I was broke, which proved she wasn't entitled to anything now that I wasn't. She walked out of that courtroom looking 10 years older. I didn't feel good about it. Didn't feel victorious. Just done. My daughters found out everything a week later. Camille called me crying, said she couldn't believe what her mother had done, said she was ashamed. Jasmine was quieter, said she needed time to process. I told them both the same thing. Your mother is still your mother. I'm not asking you to choose. I'm just asking you to see the truth. They both said they loved me, said they were proud of me for not breaking. That meant more than anything else. Marcus left Diane about a month after I turned her away. Turns out, he was only interested when he thought she had money too. When he realized she was broke and bitter, he moved on to someone else. I heard she tried to get him back, heard she called him 100 times, but he blocked her, ghosted her, left her exactly the way she left me. I didn't laugh, didn't celebrate. I just thought, that's what karma looks like. She tried reaching out one more time, sent me a letter, long, handwritten, said she was sorry, said she realized what she'd lost, said she'd spend the rest of her life regretting what she did. I read it once. Then I folded it up and put it in a drawer. I didn't respond, didn't need to, because forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. It just means I'm not carrying her weight anymore. And I wasn't. I was free. I started going to church again, started spending more time with my daughters, started rebuilding parts of myself I didn't even know were broken. And one Sunday morning, sitting in the pew with the sun coming through the stained glass, I realized something. I didn't need her to love me. I didn't need her to stay. I just needed to know the truth. And now I did. And that was enough. It's been 2 years since all that happened. I'm 57 now, still living on the ranch, still running my properties, still waking up every morning with coffee and a view that reminds me what I built. My daughters visit often. Camille brought her husband and kids out last month. We grilled, rode horses, laughed until our stomachs hurt. Jasmine calls me every Sunday. We talk about life, about faith, about how sometimes the hardest thing you can do is walk away from someone you love. I haven't remarried, haven't even dated. Not because I'm scared, but because I'm content. I learned something through all this. I learned that love isn't about what someone says. It's about what they do when everything falls apart. And I learned that you can survive betrayal. You can survive heartbreak. You can even survive losing the person you thought you'd grow old with. Because at the end of the day, the only person you really need is yourself and God and the people who show up when you've got nothing left to give. Diane's doing okay, from what I hear. She moved to Dallas, works at a bank, lives in a small apartment. I don't wish her harm. I don't wish her anything, really. She's just a chapter in my story now. A painful one, but a closed one. And I'm grateful for that. Because if she hadn't betrayed me, I never would have learned how strong I really was. I never would have learned that peace doesn't come from being loved. It comes from knowing your worth. And I know mine now. I still sit on the porch some nights with a glass of whiskey, still watch the sun go down over the hills, and sometimes I think about that man I used to be, the one who thought love was enough, the one who thought loyalty was a given. And I realize he's gone, not because he was weak, but because he had to die for me to become the man I am now. A man who knows the difference between being used and being loved. A man who won't settle for anything less than the truth. A man who survived the worst betrayal of his life and came out stronger. If you've ever been through something like this, drop a comment. Tell me your story, because you're not alone. None of us are. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. The people who survive the fire don't come out unburned, but they come out unbreakable. And that's worth more than anything money can buy. My name is Henry McLean. I'm 57 years old, and I'm finally free.